part 4 of my 10-part video series on purchasing a 10 to 15-year-old Mercedes-Benz. And in this video, I want to talk about what are the best years and models to buy. This is a very important question. I get this all the time via email. People say, well, I'm interested in buying one of these Mercedes. What do you think is the best one to buy? Well, that's very difficult to answer, and I need to tell you right up front, this is largely based on opinion. No matter who you ask, someone's going to have a different answer. So keep in mind, this entire video is based on my humble opinion. Now, before we get into actually talking about the different years and models and which ones are the best, and I want to talk about judging criteria. Because if you're going to judge something, you have to have some sort of criteria. For instance, some people think that this 210 chassis is ugly. Other people think that the 210 chassis is a work of art. The same with the 220 chassis. Some people may think that the interior is, a little weird. Other people think that's the most beautiful interior that they've ever seen. Well, that's an opinion. Everybody comes at, these judgments from different points of view. So I want to talk about judging criteria primarily not from cosmetics, but from the mechanical aspects. Because when you talk about 10 to 15-year-old Mercedes-Benz, the subject always falls back on, yes, reliability. In fact, I think this is one of the key issues with these cars. People are concerned about reliability and cost of repair. So I want to talk about judging criteria particularly related to electronics. Now, when you talk about the old Mercedes, we're talking about the Mercedes of the 70s and the early 80s. You could judge a car pretty much by how many miles you'd get out of the engine. You'd say, well, this particular model, this particular chassis here, those engines are super strong and you can plan to go 300,000 miles with that car before you ever have any problem. Or you'd say, oh, on these turbo diesel transmissions, expect a life of maybe 160,000 miles, maybe a little higher depending upon driving style. But guess what? When you get into these newer cars that are loaded with electronics and computers, that goes out the window. You cannot predict how long any of these cars are going to go before you have a problem. Any of you have a PC computer? You want to tell me that when you bought this, they said, okay, we're going to give you a warranty for 100,000 hours, but generally expect at 150,000 hours the computer will just fail because it's old and tired. Well, it doesn't work. A computer can fail after 2 weeks. It can last for 4 years. There seems to be no rhyme or reason when you get into electrics and computers as to how long things are going to last. So the judging criteria is very difficult on these newer 10 to 15-year-old Mercedes. Obviously they're not brand new, they're not under warranty, most of them are out of warranty, so if you have an issue and you take it into a dealer, it can be very expensive, and that's what makes people afraid of these cars. So I can't tell you, well, if you get this E430 here, you can expect to go 150,000 miles without any problems. Or if you get this nice S-Class, S500 over here, now maybe 120,000 miles, you might begin to have problems in this area or that area. It just doesn't work that way. And to add to that problem is trying to go on the internet to get information about these cars as to whether they're good cars or bad cars. If you read everything that you see on the internet and believe it, you'll not want to buy any of these cars. You may not want to buy a car at all. In fact, the whole sky's falling in, and the world may come to the end next week if you go onto forums and read everything about everything. I want to share with you a recent personal example of this particular problem. I recently purchased a new gadget. Of course, when I purchased it, I thought, man, it'd be nice if this thing would go 100,000 miles. But I know it's a pretty sophisticated little piece of equipment. And I thought, well, it's got a warranty, so, I'm probably safe buying it. I actually was hoping to use this in filming some of these videos, and yep, that's it, little GoPro camera. I'm sure many of you have heard about this. Some of you may even own this little camera. And I thought, this is great. I can mount this in the car. I can do some driving videos, road trip videos. this will give me some really good wide angle shots. So I mounted it up. I shot a couple videos with it. On the third video, the thing locked up. And I'm going, can you believe this? This thing locked. I didn't even use it for more than 15 minutes and it locked up. And then I tried to shut it down with a button. I couldn't shut it down. Then all of a sudden this red light went off and it goes beep, 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 beep. And I finally had to yank the battery out. So I yanked the battery out, put the battery back in, made sure the battery was charged, made sure the card was empty, and sure enough, I hit the film button, films for 1 second, shuts down. Now, do you think I was upset? That's putting it mildly. These aren't cheap. And it's not just the fact that, it's like, come on, this thing should work. And so I thought, well, let's see if anybody else has a problem with this GoPro. So I go on the internet, I type in GoPro Problems, and I end up on YouTube, and I see all these videos and I started watching some of these videos, and man, you couldn't believe some of the comments. It was like, this is a pile of junk. Don't buy these at any cost. It locks up after filming. And the only way you can, then you have to send it back in. Oh no, you need to download this new firmware, or you need to do that, or you need to do this. I'm busy and I just didn't want the hassle. Well, by that time, I got my blood boiling. You see what's going on here? And I'm thinking, how could I have been duped into buying this? These are all bad. And then I thought, oh, just a minute here. How many of these GoPro cameras have been sold? And would they even be selling these? These are very popular. They're selling thousands and thousands of these. If this were a pile of junk and did not work, would people even be buying them? Well, I would speculate, yeah, they probably wouldn't buy them. But on the other hand, I'm thinking, well, not everybody's having a problem here. But guess who are the only people reporting problems? That's right, people like me who are a little upset. I'm talking about more than a little upset. And it's very easy to get on the internet and vent your anger because you have been subjected to a problem that's either costing you time or costing you money, and it's making you very angry. Now, do you think all those thousands and thousands of people who own GoPros who've never had a problem, do you think they go on the internet and say anything? No, they don't even bother. They're happy. You never hear from them. I mean, I've learned that running a business over the last 10 years. If you hear from one person who's really happy, that means you're really doing good because there's probably a few hundred out there that are happy. But boy, if you offend somebody, you're going to hear it every time. So I'm going to warn you, this is very, very important. When you go out and start doing some research on which model or which year and chassis you want to purchase, be very careful about believing everything you hear on the internet, especially negative comments, because they're just everywhere. So as far as the GoPro camera goes, I don't know yet. But I hope you understand what I'm trying to say here. The point of this is, these are complex pieces of equipment, just like these new cars. They're loaded full of computers, and there's a lot of things going on in this little box here, and obviously I got one that's got a glitch. So I'm going to have to deal with that. But it doesn't mean every GoPro camera in the world is bad. Now, let's get back to talking about some of the better years and models of these older Mercedes-Benz. This is a 2000 E430 sedan, known also as the W210 chassis. If I were to go to Google and type in W210 Mercedes problems, I would get an earful. Just like I told you with the GoPro camera. But I also know people, and you might think, wow, these 210 chassis are no good. But I also know people that have driven these for years and never had any problems. A lot of it comes back to how the car's cared for, what type of maintenance it's had, but also some of it is just the luck of the draw. Once again, because we're talking about electronics here. So when you go out and start looking, you're going to have to make the decision. I can't tell you what the best model is because once again, I have to give that information based on what I think I like the best. I think that almost any model during this period is fine. If it fits the type of driving style you're looking for, the size, how many people it hauls, what you're going to be doing with the car, that's fine. There's other issues here that I can give you general guidelines. The first one is I would recommend that you avoid the first 2 years of production of any particular chassis. And by the way, if you don't know what the chassis is, then before you even go looking at these cars, you need to do some research. You need to learn about all the different, the 220, the 140, the 129, the 210, the 211, the 202, the 203. You need to understand what these chassis mean. It has to do with the basic body style of the car. They have different engines, but the basic body style is a numbered chassis designation. So there's all kinds. You can use Wikipedia. There's books out there that take you through all, and you can just study for a while. Look at the pictures and look at the specifications. Say, man, I really like the 211 chassis. Oh no, I like the 202. I want a C-Class. I want a smaller car, better mileage. So those are decisions you're going to have to make. I can't tell you which is the best model for you to buy. But I do, once again, highly recommend that you generally avoid the first 2 years of production. And I'm not saying that 100%, but those are the cars, you know, the car's birth, it's going to have some birthing, I call them birthing pains, and some issues during those first couple years of production. Now, if you go out and find an absolutely pristine first year, low mileage, one owner with 50,000 miles, then maybe I would throw that particular recommendation out the window. I'm talking about as a general rule. For instance, I'm going to give you an example. The first 2 years of the W210 chassis, 1996 and 1997, they were still using the straight 6-cylinder 104 engine. Now, I know some of you out there just love that engine, think it's the greatest engine ever made. And then in 1998, they came out with the V6. But I personally am tired of changing head gaskets in 104 engines. They have this propensity to develop oil leaks in the head gasket. So do I even want to deal with that? No, I don't. So I'm not even going to look at a 96 or a 97 210 chassis. And it may be the same with the ML chassis. You know, in 98 and 99, those first 2 years, they had some manufacturing problems. You know, that they were gearing up here in the States to build those SUVs. And so if I'm looking for a ML, I'll probably start at 2000 and on up. Once again, this is my opinion. You have to weight that opinion. But it is generally a good rule to follow. But beyond that, the most important thing is how well the car is taken care of. You know, one of the things I tell people, it's one of the first things I do when I go out and look at a car, is I just walk around it. I can tell in 2 minutes whether I even want to pursue buying the car. You know what? One of the first things I look at is the number of door dings in the side of the car. And you say, well, why is that important? Shouldn't the engine be more important? Shouldn't, you know, something else? Why door dings? Well, I don't have any door dings in my car because I am obsessive about my car. And I park it in places where I can't get a door ding because I care about my car. Now, that's not saying that the person who doesn't care about his car is a bad person. No, it's just you want to buy a car from somebody who really loves their car. Because guess what? If there's no door dings in it, it probably means it's had oil changes on a regular basis. Probably means it's had the dealer maintenance done because that's evidence the car is loved. So when you go out and look for one of these 10 to 15-year-old Mercedes, you're going to be looking like things like, has this car been loved? Do I have maintenance records? How many miles on this car? All these things will come together for you to decide, okay, this is a car I am really interested in buying. So you might want to go look at a few. You go to a dealer and drive a 210 chassis, maybe drive a 140 or a 220 chassis, and just see if that's the kind of car you want before you go on the hunt. Now, in future videos, I'm going to address things like, well, should I buy from a dealer or should I buy from a private party? I'm going to address other issues like, what should I look at when I go inspect the car? What else besides, door dings do you look at during that first visual inspection? And then what about the road test? So what's the best model, year and model? Only you can decide that, and it'll probably come from you watching the entire series and what I'm talking about before you actually go out and say, okay, that's what I want. And I would, as a final note here, I would encourage you that you actually determine what you want before you go looking. Don't just go say, I'm going to go look for a cool old Mercedes. I recommend that you do your research, you do some test driving, you decide exactly what chassis you want, and then decide exactly what color you want, and then go on the hunt. Because in the hunt, you will be able to narrow that down and focus, and you won't be all over the place, say, well, should I go look at this one? Should I go look at that one? So happy hunting, everyone. I hope you do find the Mercedes of your dreams.